What does it mean to know another language? What does it mean to be fluent? Within the US, an estimated 20% of people are bilingual, compared to 56% in European countries. If you're like me, then you'd like to join this 20%. In fact, a lot of you are. But due to the current state of bilingual education in America, this simply won't happen. Across the US, many schools have traditionally offered foreign languages, but they often aren't very successful at creating proficient students. Why? To answer this question, let's take a look at how bilinguals are created naturally. Most bilingual people will begin learning their second language at a young age, learning two languages simultaneously with almost no active effort. However, oftentimes one language is weaker than the other, and this can result in the creation of receptive or passive bilinguals.
My name is Sneha Subramani and I'm 18 years old. My family and my ancestors are originally from Kodamuni, which is a small village in Tamil Nadu in southern India. So my parents and my family's main language and native language is Tamil. However, as time moved on, my parents and my grandparents moved away from that rural area of Kodamuni into a city called Bangalore, which is in the state of Karnataka. And I think this is when the first play of different languages in India come into play in my life. In 1997, my parents moved to America, and they first moved to North Carolina, I believe, which is where I was born. And then they moved to Virginia, and then we moved to California, and then we moved here to Madison, Alabama when I was 4 years old. And my mom is always a huge proponent of like Tamil culture and Indian culture, so at home she's always playing like Tamil music, and she's always making us watch like Tamil movies. And so I think from a very young age, it's always just been like the culture rather than like my parents speaking to me. It's like been the songs and the movies and my cousins talking to me in Tamil. I think that's like where my earliest memories of Tamil come from. I think Tamil is in the simplest form. It's just a representation of my culture and who that part of me is. As long as I can remember, Indian culture has always been like sort of a big thing to me and big thing in my life, obviously. And so I think Tamil in the simplest form is just a representation of the culture that I'm proud to be a part of today.
Sneha's story is not an uncommon one, but it differs largely from someone like me who learned their second language at an older age in a school. Past the age of 10, language acquisition takes a dramatic dive. It becomes more difficult to acquire more languages at native proficiency the longer we wait. So why did we wait?
My name is Peggy Boynton, and I speak German and English. I'm a native English speaker. I also studied Latin and Japanese and Swedish and French during my different times at undergraduate and graduate school. I definitely think we should start earlier with languages, because I think that when we wait until middle school or even sometimes high school to start learning a language, students sometimes build up this fear that they're gonna make so many mistakes and they're not gonna do well, and they lose that confidence. Whereas when you start as a younger child and build it up, you have less of that. It's not about grammar, and it's not about being perfect. That's something I think my students worry about a lot, is they worry about like their language being no mistakes. And I want to say, do you speak English perfectly? You know, do you make no mistakes ever in your language? Of course not. You know, you do all the time. Or you start a sentence and then you change your mind and you rewind and you start again, and like that's just normal.
Well, one school system in Madison, Alabama isn't waiting. In 2018, the school system began making the transition to allow students to take foreign language courses at all grade levels. Students as young as preschool are exposed to other languages. and schools all across the US have begun to make this transition as well. The emergence of immersion schools and record-setting immigration since 2000 have inspired much-needed change in the way Americans view foreign language.
It's not until you get into level 3 and level 4 that you really start to become more proficient with the language. And that's why here at Madison City we have our Seal of Biliteracy program, which you can work towards once you get into that a little bit more intermediate level of language. That bilingualism is it's an empowering thing, it's a creative thing. Sometimes I have words for things and I can only think of the German word that I want to say because there isn't a good English word, and vice versa, or sometimes there's a turn of phrase or an idiom that exists in another language that you don't have in your own language, and that it just opens up for you another way to look at the world and another way for you to talk about the world.